All right, here we are. This is Jay Brown Yoga Talks podcast. My name is Jay Brown. Welcome to you, whoever you are. If this is your first time here, it's important for you to know that you have come on an unusual occasion. This is what has become a new annual ritual of mine, which is the year-end check-in. I don't usually release episodes that are just me talking. I usually have a guest, as regular listeners know. But some years back, I believe it was back in 2022, I did my first year-end check-in. And this will be my third year that I'm doing it. And I have done 2 other solo episodes that were connected to the recent opening of a yoga center. And there's really 2 reasons why I do this year-end check-in. One, it's good for me to see if I can take some time and reflect on a few things without having the episode also include a conversation. And regular listeners know, if you're new here, I always do a little bit of this, like at the beginning and the end of an episode, but I don't usually make a whole episode of me just rambling on about stuff. But today I am, partially because, as I said, it's sort of good for me to have an occasion to just reflect in a way that I might not if there was a conversation that I was also sharing. But also, if you're listening to this at the time of its publication, it's the week of Christmas. And I observed over many years that whenever I put out an episode on the week of Christmas, it never gets as many listens. People are just busy and people are doing stuff and people aren't on their usual routines. And I always felt bad for whoever my guest was, like they were getting like a crap end of the stick by having a publication date that was when everybody was having their Christmas and stuff. So in a way, having this solo episode this week on Christmas just felt like the right thing to do. And, it isn't very often though. It is unusual. I was just looking, and as of right now, they haven't all been released, but I have recorded 462 episodes of this show, including the one that I'm recording right now, which is just pushing on 9 years of doing this every week. And when I say that out loud, I'm surprised and shocked by that just as much as anybody else might be. And what do I attribute that to? I attribute that to just creating a ritual and then just sticking to it and being consistent, which is the same thing that I've done with my yoga practice over all these years, which I imagine many of you have done as well. In any case, I am taking this opportunity this week of Christmas 2024 to have a year-end check-in. And if you're new around here, you might want to listen to some other episodes first, because not everybody's into this aspect of the show, which is me working through my stuff. Having said that, people who are interested in that part of it are interested in me rambling on about the things that I ramble on about. I think you would notice that the conversations I have, they are connected to different threads that I'm pulling on, or just things I'm working on in myself. And one of the reasons why I've done this for as long as I have and been consistent is because it served me. It helps me have to look at myself and look at life and question things and stay inspired and whatnot. So in any case, that's what we're doing today. So if you're not so interested in hearing me talk about things, then come back next week. I got some amazing episodes in the can, or go ahead and check back through the archives. Lots of great stuff to check out. But if you're sticking around, if you're a regular listener, if you're one of the all-timers who's been here since the beginning, it's been a while since we've had a proper check-in with the yoga center. I say little bits here and there, but all in all, it's going pretty well. I would say the first 2 months, October and November, exceeded my expectations in the sense that I really wasn't expecting very many people to show up, and more people than I expected did. And even more than that, a number of the people who have showed up in that first few weeks have taken to it and have made it like a ritual already. And so I have a small group of like new regular folks, new friends who are coming. And that is exactly what I need. I need a core group of people who decide that they want to make the place a regular part of their lives. And then you'll have like a kind of flux of people coming in. And that's what was happening in that first 2 months. However, I would say that this month, December, since Thanksgiving, it's been a big tip down. As I was saying last week, it got cold here. And I didn't really think about that. I know that there always is a certain cycle to attendance. I remember from when I had a center before that I would often joke with teachers where like they would start to have like a certain regular amount of attendance. You know, let's say they're averaging like 8 to 10 students or even better than that. And then at a certain point, there might be a dip down and then there was only like 1 or 2 students coming. And they would come to me and be like, what's going on? And I would just say, I don't know. You know, sometimes it's just like the weather. And I was just like joking about how there's not always a lot of rhyme or reason to attendance. And everybody over the years has tried to make a science of it, and all the business people think they know how to do it, and all the proper marketing that you're supposed to do. And then, you know, all the decisions that people have made, which we'll talk about maybe today in terms of like memberships and how you run stuff to try to, you know, maximize profits and all the things that you would do. But really, you don't know what's going to fuel attendance or not, especially in a place like what I've done. For those of you who are newer listeners, the center I just opened up is a very small place in my neighborhood. And my neighborhood's not like a big city. It's not like massive foot traffic. There is some foot traffic there. There's a college here and a Wawa. But it's not like dense population like when I was in Brooklyn. It's a small place in this neighborhood. And really, I don't need big attendance. I really only need maybe 4 or 5 people per class on average to make it work. And maximum is 8 people. Although I did figure out that if I take away the mat for the teacher and I move some mats, I can put 10 in. Like if the teacher just has a cushion to sit on and doesn't have their own mat space, I can have 10 people in there reasonably comfortably, but 8 is really the comfortable amount. And like I said, I only need 4 or 5 on average to really make it work. And in November, I had that one class, if you remember, I had 7 people and I was like over the moon. But here's the thing. I'm going to lay it out for you real, because one of the things that I have done from the very beginning is talk numbers. And, you know, really, if you didn't know, the only reason I have the center is because I asked for help. I was told to ask for help. That's a longer story. I prayed and I was told that I needed to ask for help. So I did. I asked for help from the places that I know to ask for help, friends and family that I have. And then when I really wasn't able to get help from my family, then I asked you. I asked people who were listening to this show. I asked the people on my email list, and I did a fundraiser. And much to my amazement and joy, a couple hundred people, I think it was like 260 people or something, decided to help me and help me raise the money to open this yoga center. Now, what I will say about that is I had to come up with the number of like what the goal was for the fundraiser. And I came up with what I thought was going to be like the number that would cover the overhead for the center for the first year. You might remember I talked about that here on the show. I think one of the last times I did a solo episode like this, I talked about this, and I came up with this number based on the information I had at the time. And, you know, there was setbacks. If you recall, there was code inspectors and bureaucracy. So ultimately I got delayed a month. And then there was just a couple of unexpected expenses that I couldn't have foreseen. So I did reach the fundraising goal, but it isn't going to cover me for as long as I was hoping, is what I was saying. Like, I was trying to give myself some grace period to give the place a chance to grow. And I just don't have as much of a grace period as I was hoping. Let's just put it that way. So the other thing that I really feel like I want to mention is that I do have some doubts about how I've decided to run the place in terms of the money and the classes. If you didn't already know, I decided to do a straight $15 per student per class. Cash, Venmo, or PayPal. If you want to do a credit card, you can, but it's an additional $1 to cover the processing fees. But it's just a straight $15 per person per class. No class packs, no memberships, no intro packages, none of that. Just a straight $15 per person per class. And on so many levels, it's worked great. I would say 85% of the time, people have paid me in cash. Like, I have cash in my wallet again. How about that? But even still, it's just really clean. Like, I don't have any admin that I have to get bogged down by or anything. It all exists right there. People come for class. They pay for class. I give them a class, and then it all happens right then and there, and it's very clean. However, I have had a few instances where I feel like I've kind of doubted it. Like, maybe I'm being stupid. I'll give you the example that comes to mind first, where recently I had someone reach out, email me saying, you know, I want to buy a gift for someone. Can you, sell me like 5 classes and give me a little bit of a discount? And, some part of me is like, well, sure, why don't I just do that? Why don't I just start selling classes for whatever I can sell them for right now and like help boost it? Because as I said, it's been down this month, and it would be a way for me to actually kind of like boost some sales on a slow month, But I didn't do it. Instead, I wrote this very thoughtful email, probably too long, where I explained to this person that I could charge more for a regular drop-in class. I could charge, whatever, $17, $18 for a regular drop-in class. And then I could offer 5 class packs and 10 class packs where you get like $1 or $2 off each class. But if I do that, then first of all, I got to keep track. I got to keep track of how many classes you've used. And, that's not too hard. You could use punch cards. We could go back to using punch cards or whatever. But if people want to do it online, if people feel like it needs to be online, then I got to pay for some shit. And then I'm kind of reliant on this software, and anybody who used MindBody online and has dealt with like registration softwares and like all the issues they have, Viago and all this stuff that people have tried to use. It's a nightmare. I don't want to have anything to do with it. But even more than that, even more than keeping track, because I could just use some punch cards, why not? But even more than that, for me personally, it's about expiration dates. You see, normally if you have class packs, you have expiration dates, like you have a certain number of months to use them. And that's because if someone buys classes now but then uses them next year, it just, again, it removes, the money happened so long ago. It divorces the money from the moment and causes issues for centers. And so that's why they give you that discount. But the trade-off is there's an expiration date. You have to use them within a certain time. And then I have to enforce that. And then there's always that moment of, oh, how much over the expiration date are you still going to let it pass and all that? And it just is so not anything I want to deal with. And then if you do the memberships, to me, that is really the worst, because that's where you incentivize not using it, in a sense. Because if people buy memberships just to have them and then they don't use them, you make more money than if people do use them. I guess that's less true when it's just me teaching. But if I ever have other teachers teaching there, or if you have more teachers teaching at a center and you sell memberships and you pay your teachers according to attendance, then selling people unlimited memberships, or even the tiered memberships that they do now, the center definitely makes more money if people don't use them. So in some regard, it's better for the center if people don't use the classes they pay for than if they do, which is the exact opposite. I want the center to be an alive place. I want people to come to the center. I don't want to make more money if they don't. So I explained this to this person in not so many words. But here's one thing that I did do, which I think is kind of cool, but I don't know if it's smart or just dumb of me. What I did do is I made pogs. I don't know if you guys know what pogs are. They're like coins. And on one side is like the logo of the yoga center. On the other side is one class. So it's basically like a Birdhouse Yoga one class coin. And I got them made originally because I was worried, what am I going to do if too many people come? Because if you remember, I had that one class of 7 people, and I thought, oh no, I got to be prepared. If too many people come and I have to turn someone away, my idea was I'm just going to give them a free class. And this will be an easy way to do it. I'll just give them one of these one free class Birdhouse Yoga Pog coins and say, here, I'm so sorry. Do come back. This is good for a free class. So basically, like, the Birdhouse has its own money that you can exchange for a class. And I told the person online that if he wanted to come in and buy some of these, he could give them to whoever his gives. But the person never came in. The person emailed me and thanked me for the thoughtful response and whatever, but they didn't come in and buy classes. I probably could have sold some classes to that person if I wasn't all trying to do what I'm trying to do. And I guess I'm definitely wondering if I'm being stupid, if I should just do whatever I can to make more money with the place. I guess for right now, I'm not there. I'm not going to do this where I have to try to make it this business thing that I'm trying to do. I'm going to just keep it the pure thing that it's been. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I definitely have more time still before, like, I would really come up against it. And, you know, here it is. I'll give you the exact numbers. All right. So in October, the center brought in $990. In November, the center brought in $1,125. And December, it's still not done yet. There is going to be a few days when I get back from my trip, but it looks like it's going to be about half of those. And, you know, that's pretty good, you know, considering the fact that before I had the center, I was paying $300 a month for a share studio space. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to use that as like a commercial space. It wasn't zoned as a commercial space, so I couldn't really make it into a center, but I had a space that I was paying $300 a month for. And the new place, I figured it out, like the overhead expenses for the new place is $1,400 a month. So I'm essentially exactly where I was to a degree, if not just a little bit back. Although, like I said, I had the money that I raised in the fundraiser, so I have that money to go off of some. But all in all, that's pretty great. That's pretty good in terms of numbers. They're small numbers, but in terms of me not taking some like crazy hit and then falling deeper into debt. It's great. And the truth is, I didn't start this center to make a lot of money. I just needed to make enough money so that it doesn't feel like I'm being dumb to do it. Because all of the other parts of it, like the actual people who are coming and the practice I'm having with them, has been really rewarding and interesting and fun for me, reinvigorating for me in a lot of ways. In fact, just today, my new friend Sharon, I'm shouting you out, Sharon. I hope that's okay. My new friend Sharon, she's been coming and she just embraced the practice in the spirit that I hope to offer it, in the spirit that I hope people would receive it. And we just had a really wonderful, intimate conversation among friends and then a practice together today. And it was really beautiful. And it made it clear to me. I was like, well, I didn't do this for money. In fact, I don't even feel like I totally did this. Which does bring me to another topic I feel like I wanted to broach. And it's connected, which is all the God talk that I've been doing over the last year, especially. I mean, this is the year that I felt compelled to have conversations about higher power and God. And you know, I had just a recent conversation the other week with Gregor Mela about bhakti yoga. And we talked quite a bit about God. And I've been thinking about that conversation and something he said in it about, you know, a white bearded man in the sky, which is, I think, what sort of a lot of us kind of grew up thinking of it as, that we associate God or Jesus Christ or Christianity, or some of us Judaism, with like hypocrisy and like abuse and stuff. And another thing I want to say, and this is for my friend, I don't know this person's name off the top, and I don't know if this person's even listening to the show anymore, frankly. Somebody emailed me not too long ago after listening to the episode I did with Norman Blair recently, where we talked about politics, and Norman made very strong statements about the situation in Israel. And this person was upset with me because they were pointing to the fact that whenever I bring up Judaism, I talk about it being like hypocritical. And, you know, I really feel like I need to apologize for that. If you're someone listening to this who has felt that I've like spoken ill of Judaism, I feel bad about that, because that's not what I've intended to do. Whenever I've made that comment about feeling like Judaism was hypocritical, I'm only talking about my personal experience of being 16 years old in Los Angeles at the temple that my parents were taking me to. Like, that particular experience felt to me like the path that it was offering me, like the spiritual path that it was offering me, felt like hypocritical. It didn't feel like full of depth. It just seemed like about social status and other things. But the part that I haven't mentioned in those conversations, because I'm always talking about different things, but the part that I don't mention is I have other memories of, say, my mom lighting Hanukkah candles and singing, and other aspects of Judaism that are so beautiful that I hold very dear. So I feel like I haven't been clear when I talk about religions and when I talk about Judaism and my experience of Judaism. I've only made these one comments about it being hypocritical, and I haven't made other comments about what's wonderful about it. So for whatever that's worth, I think that person who emailed me decided that they weren't going to listen to the show anymore, honestly, which hurt a little because they were a long time listener. But maybe you listen to this. I don't know. If you do, I've intended to email you back as well, and it hasn't happened yet. But if you're listening, I do apologize for that. In any case, I was saying that when we have these conceptions, or we say things about religions that aren't the whole picture, you know, when we we talk about God as the white bearded man in the sky. I don't think that's accurate to what my experience is. Like when I'm talking about having a creator God and a personal relationship to God, I'm not talking about that at all. I'm not talking about some white bearded man in the sky. I'm talking about observing my experiences. And if you engage in prayer and you look to have a relationship to God and you entertain God as a being, that's the thing. You have to choose to entertain it, to believe in it. And there is a choice that you make. And if you can't know it, you can't be like agnostic or atheistic and then understand what a person of faith is experiencing. You can't. If you want to understand what a person of faith is experiencing, you have to give yourself over to some faith. So I do feel like that was where I was at when this center happened. And I do feel like prayers that I made were answered. But in those prayers, I didn't ask for a yoga center that was going to make a lot of money. I didn't even ask for money. I didn't ask for money at all. I asked for a place that I could go to where people would come and we could be together as friends and we could share in the beauty of life and the glory of your creation. That's what I prayed for. And all these things happened that I couldn't have controlled and brought it about. And here I am. I'm like 3 months in and I'm just came home and from sitting in my beautiful little yoga center, having this wonderful practice. This great new person that I met. So on so many levels, it's everything that I asked for. But what I've learned is that sometimes it seems like when God answers your prayers, it doesn't mean that everything's going to be easy, And it isn't even really about asking for things and then getting them. It's not about that at all. It's about how I'm relating. And I definitely have felt different. I felt different when I feel like I'm taking myself out of it more. Like the idea that I am in control and I'm steering this and I'm going to make this place great. And honestly, at this point, I feel like what the place needs more than anything is like a couple other teachers, 1 or 2 other teachers who could bring some other energy to it. Like it can't just be me. I need a couple other teachers. And I have reached out, and one of my friends recently did like a series. She still has 1 or 2 classes of like yoga for teens that she wanted to do. And she's had like a couple people come. And I'm happy for that. I've reached out to a couple other people and they're interested in doing a similar thing, like a series. But the problem there is if you want to do like a 6-week series, you kind of need a student base already to go off of. If I just advertise, hey, beginner series, 6-week series, it's not going to do great necessarily. Like that's not how you build a place. Like the way you build a place or grow it. I think grow it is actually a better way to say it. It's like a garden and you grow it by just like showing up there every week for a while and teaching to anybody who comes, even if it's just one person, and like not having to sweat about the money. And if you can do that for a period of time, I believe if I can do that, even just myself, if I can kind of hold it down, we're going to see how we come into this new year. But I think I'm in a really good position for the place to kind of come alive some, and it just needs a little bit more of a student base and it'll fly. Cause like I said, I don't need that many people, but you gotta hold it down. And I need a couple other teachers who can do that. And I don't know anybody who's in a position to be able to do that. And it needs to be the right person. It needs to be people who jive with what the place is about, Cause it's not going to be like lots of different flavors, but there's certainly room for people to do other kinds of practices that I think would be harmonious and live well together, really it's just about people. It's about people and how we get along and how they get along with the people who come. And I guess there's a certain spirit that I'm looking for the place to have, and whoever comes in just has to want to get on board with that. So that's it. That's the rundown for the new yoga center. I do have some decisions to make about my schedule because for the last 3 months, I've had a 7-day-a-week schedule, 2 classes a week every day, 7 days a week for the last 3 months, except for Thanksgiving. And then now tomorrow I'm leaving for a week to go to Virginia. That's the first time I've had off more than 2 days in a row since Thanksgiving. So, I have to decide what I'm going to do with the schedule. And I could already see how, the Sunday classes, not many people have come to those. I could drop Sunday. But that's the thing. Part of me feels like if I show up there every day and the place doesn't fly, then I at least can say I did everything I could. I was there every day. But if I take time off and I'm like, oh, I need more time, and I take time off and I don't go there, and then the place doesn't fly, I might have regret. I might be like, oh, I should have invested more time at the beginning. Having said that, I imagine actually that I could drop Sunday and it would still be the same. Like it wouldn't hurt that much. Whoever was coming on Sunday would probably find another day to come. And not that many people were coming on Sunday. That's a thing. Although it is really hard to tell because of the weather, which is where I started with attendance and the weather. The truth is I opened this place in my neighborhood specifically to be a place that people walk to. Like it's a 7-minute walk for me. And the other day it was snowing and I was like, should I drive? And I was like, no, I can walk in the snow for 7 minutes. And for me, it's this interesting exercise of I know for at least 15 minutes a day, I'm going to be walking outside, at a minimum to and from the center. But the reality is when it's that cold, people were much less inclined to go out than they were in October and November when the weather was nicer and people were just dropping in to check it out, Not as many people just, oh, let me go check out the new yoga center when it's 22 degrees out, So we'll see. We'll see if there's a New Year's resolution fervor like there used to be, if people are feeling like they want to get going in the new year and some people show up in January. But ultimately, I'm really trying not to go by that. I know I gave you the numbers and that's a reality that I have to bear in mind. I got to bear in mind the numbers and I got to know where I stand. But really, it's not really what it's about at all. And it's about me maintaining consistency in the face of what does feel like daunting challenges. And the challenges aren't just about like, oh, the money and people coming in. The challenges feel bigger. The challenges feel like cultural and societal. It makes me think of my daughter Roslyn. Let me mention Roslyn. Long-time OG listeners will remember Roslyn was on the show once when she was 7 years old, and now she's turning 15. And I gotta say, Roslyn is pretty cool. She's pretty smart, and I know she doesn't really listen to this show, but maybe one day she will. And if you're listening to this now, Roslyn, at some point in the future, you should just know how deeply impressed I am by you. Roslyn is excelling in many ways at school, and she does it in a way that's unconventional. Like she shouldn't be able to get away with what she's getting away with. She pulls all-nighters, and she does all these things that would potentially sabotage herself. And it might catch up with her eventually, and I keep telling her that. But I think I get why she does it. Because she's old enough and mature enough to see through like a lot of the bullshit. I don't know how to say it any other way. Like she sees her teachers for being real people and being flawed people. She can see when people are hypocritical. She's starting to look at the world in a bigger way already at a much younger age than I did. That's for sure. And she can kind of see how, she can jump through certain hoops, and if she satisfies these certain requirements, then she gets the grade, you know? She's got great grades. She's like number 6 in her class or whatever, which is a weird thing that they do now. Does anybody listening to this who's like over the age of 30 or whatever remember, like, when you were in high school, did you have a way of looking up like a ranking of like the person who has like the highest GPA in your class and like where you rank in your class? Well, they have that now because everything's all digital. Everything's all on the iPad. So they can literally go in and look up where they rank among their other students in their class. Well, whatever. Rosalind is in the top 10 students in the sophomore class at Easton Area High School in 2024. And she's done all these AP classes, and, you know, she really, she does all these things that drive me and her mom nuts because her study habits are crazy, and she pulls all-nighters, and I don't know how she does it, but then she still has managed to pull out the grades. And in a way, I think she does it to kind of, it's almost like an FU, you know? It's like, I'm going to mess around and I'm still going to get a good grade because she can really see, you know. And the other thing that was interesting to me is that she has been using like Chat GPT or like AI stuff. I kind of caught her using it. I was like, what are you doing with that? And she uses it to help her study sometimes. And she actually uses it in a really smart way. Like, she doesn't use it to help her like write papers or anything like that or like cheat, but she does, like, for instance, she's identified that she's a real auditory learner, that if she just has to read it and stare at words on the page, it's harder for her to get it. But if she hears somebody talking about it, like if her teacher lectures to about stuff, or she hears people in dialogue about stuff, then she remembers it better. So you know what she does? She takes like a PDF of the chapter that she's supposed to read for her, like, you know, her like U.S. history class or whatever, her AP U.S. history class. She'll take the chapter and she'll put it into ChatGPT and she'll say, make me a podcast out of this. And ChatGPT will create a podcast where there's like a woman host and a male host, and they're having a conversation about the chapter, going over all the points in the chapter. And she'll listen to it and she'll totally remember it and ace the test. And that's how she's been studying. And some part of me is like, oh my God, it's so weird. She's listening to this like artificially generated conversation based on this history chapter. But the history chapter itself, like when I look to read it myself, it's totally dry and boring, and I wouldn't want to read it and study it either. So she kind of found a way to make it more interesting for her, and in a way where she retains it. And she's got like one of the highest scores in her class or whatever. She's kicking butt. But I don't know, I mention that because it's just interesting to see her interfacing with the sort of new digital reality. The really hopeful thing about Rosalind, though, is the other day I had a conversation with her and I was really stunned because she shared with me that she doesn't want to have sex until she gets married. And I was like stunned to hear her say that, you know? It's not like it's not like I've been really talking with her a lot about God or any of the things that I've even been talking about on the show. Like, she's asked me a few questions because she's certainly seen changes in me, I think. And she's expressed that she has belief, but we haven't had any like really deep conversations about it. But she said that she wanted to be, as she said, a child of God, and she wasn't going to have sex until she got married. And my wife and me were stunned by that. And, you know, who knows if that will hold true or whatever. But what struck me was that right now, with the way things are in our culture, like, the cool thing is to be like more straight. Like when I was growing up, cutting loose and going to New York and living a crazy lifestyle and alternative lifestyles was like, that was what was cool. And now for Rosalind and like a lot of her friends, like they're not seeing that as cool in the same way anymore. Like, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to see in my daughter. And actually it made me feel hopeful, made me feel that there's, a spirit among a lot of the youth that is going to find a way to live in this world without it overtaking their ability to be intimate. And I don't know. It was very important to hear her say that. And who knows? We'll see how that plays out. But the other thing I would say that does give me hope is one of the things I saw happen with my other daughter, Annabelle, recently. And if you're a listener and you listen to the episodes about Annabelle and everything that happened with her, she's been doing great. And I couldn't be more grateful for how she's growing up. And, you know, she still has a lot of challenges, and I don't want to share about those things because I know Annabelle would be upset. And she probably would listen to this because you know how she is, but she would be upset if I talked anything specific about her on the show. So I'm not going to. But there was one thing that happened recently that really, I don't know, made me feel hopeful as well, which was like a neighbor of ours saw Annabelle walking home by herself because now she's in 4th grade. She walks to school and back from school on her own. And I think she's very proud of that. She's old enough and mature enough to do that. And she was walking home and the neighbor saw her stopping at like all of these trees along the way home and then just like putting her hand on her heart and like having like a little loving moment with the trees. And then our neighbor just saw her doing that and thought it was so beautiful and said something to us about it. And, you know, I've asked her about it and she told me what she was doing, and it's connected to, these wonderful movies that she loves. I don't know if you guys know Studio Ghibli, these Japanese animated films. It's too long a story, but Annabelle loves those films. And in those films, all of the characters have deep connection to nature and nature spirits. And she was just taking a moment to like send love to the tree spirits. And I don't know. The fact that my youngest daughter does that on her way home from school makes me immensely happy. And the fact that my elder daughter is deciding to be discerning and make choices that aren't just going along with the flow of everything is also encouraging. And my dear wife, she's so awesome. I don't say enough about Audrey, my wife. She's someone who doesn't really like to ever have the spotlight on her. I have actually tried to get her to record an episode with me, but she has no interest in doing so. I love her for that. And I just want to take this moment to say how much I am grateful for her and how I just don't think I could be doing any of the things I was doing if it wasn't for her in my life and her character as a person and me wanting to live up to the promise that we've made to each other. So I love you, Audrey, so much. What else? I am just rambling on. Would anybody care about any of this? I don't even know if I'm going to use any of this, if I need to re-record stuff. But you know what? Here's what it comes down to. Here's the last thing I think I feel like I might want to say here in this year-end check-in 2024, which is that I have full clarity about why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Like why I'm a yoga teacher. And over the almost 30 years that I've been teaching yoga, there have been times where I've felt totally, clear and had conviction and knew exactly what I was doing and why. And then I've had times where I've really been in doubt and not been clear about what I was doing, where things were evolving or changing and I didn't know where I stood. But right now I do. I know that having an opportunity for people to come together, to facilitate a space where people come together and they do these breathing and moving exercises that settle them to some degree so that they can just be together in an intimate way, in friendship, in an immediate way, in a shared way. That's what is needed. And that we would, in that shared space, we would talk to each other honestly about things that are important, that mean something, not just superficialities about the weather, but the things that matter to us, that we would talk about things and that we would care about each other. And that's where I feel like I'm fulfilling the promise of being in this life in a good way and serving God's will. And I think there is such a thing. And I was talking about that with Gregor. He's calling it an agenda. I just think that there's a will for us on this earth. And I think that the will for us on earth is to do what I just said. Isn't that like at the core essence of it? Love each other and care for each other. And isn't that in the spirit of the holiday that we're potentially celebrating if you're listening to this on the week in which it was published? So, as I have been mentioning in these conversations, it does seem to come down to love, and that's where we're going to leave it today. I hope so much that you could have some faith and could feel like you serve something bigger than yourself, because it relieves a lot of anxiety and burden on life, I can feel how over the last few weeks with this downturn this month, my mind it'll slip into this other mode that I used to be in, this fear, anxiety, desperate, what am I going to do to fix it mode. And fortunately, though, that's where I used to live. And I'm not living there now. I can see when it comes up. And I have some new things that I do to try to keep it at bay. Mainly it is just, like having faith. And it's having faith not just when things are going well, like I said, it's not just about like getting what you want. I feel like I'm getting what is helping me grow, and I don't necessarily like that there's so much uncertainty to it. And I wish there's like, I don't know, some part of me is like, oh, if only there was like more money in the bank, then I wouldn't have to worry. And, maybe that's true to some degree, but if I have deep faith, I don't have to worry either. See? The more I explore it, the more I realize, oh wow, there's a reward to it. It means that it's not about me and it's not about how much money is in the bank. In a way, those things become less relevant. So I don't know if that means anything to anybody else. And again, I don't even know if this is going to go out, but if it does and you're listening to it, I sure hope there's something in it for you, and that maybe you too can find some guiding light, some faith to support you. At the very least, what do you say we be kind? Let's be kind to ourselves, and let's be kind to others. And I will talk to you again soon. We will be back to our usual fare next week. I got cool episodes waiting for you, okay? All right. Please take care. Cheers.